point blank. And one thing is for sure, you can't buy a slave. You have to make one.
Keep moving, Danny.
I said, I saw white men.
For the rest of your lives, even when you have come to be men, you must be on guard against the white Tobob and the black traders who help them. These things I'm going to tell you now you must hear with more than your ears. For not to do as I say can mean you're being stolen away to a place outside our world, outside of us, forever. Never be alone when you can help it. Never be out at night when you can help it. And day or night, if you are alone, keep away from any high weeds or bushes. And if ever you see much smoke away from any village, it is probably the white man's cooking fires, which are always too big. And remember, when you are close to where he has been, his scent remains in the air. It is a smell like a wet chicken. And most importantly, remember that Kunta Kinte saw the white man less than 2 days' walk from where we are now. The white man is here.
It is, of course, rooted in America's original sin of slavery, which contradicted the fundamental promise of the Declaration of Independence. It was expressed in decisions that counted black Americans as just 3/5 of a person. After the Civil War, President Andrew Johnson vetoed an early civil rights bill, arguing that it would create special rights for former slaves, while ex-Confederate paramilitary groups from the KKK to white leagues sought to violently reassert white supremacy while suppressing black voting rights, leading to segregation for a century. But white identity politics has a changing definition, because the definition of what it means to be white has changed in America. To a large extent, it is a social construct. In the 1920s, the second incarnation of the KKK rose to oppose not just blacks, but Catholics and Jews, as well as Southern European immigrants. The era also gave birth to strains of so-called scientific racism, captured in the pages of The Great Gatsby, where Tom Buchanan, the wealthy and dissolute husband of Daisy, talks about a book he's reading called The Rise of the Colored Empires, and says, "Civilization's going to pieces. The idea is that if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. It's been proved. It's up to us, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or those other races will have control of things." Sound familiar? Now, there have been repeated attempts to dress this anxiety up as something more refined, from constitutional debates about states' rights to Dixiecrat presidential campaigns to white citizens' councils that tried to rally massive resistance to desegregation. A former Grand Wizard of the KKK, David Duke, even tried to rebrand the National Association of White People before running for governor of Louisiana as a Republican in the early 1990s. Now, it's been said that history doesn't repeat, and sometimes it rhymes. So when I saw online calls for massive resistance to the election of Barack Obama in the fall of 2008, or interviewed Tea Party rally goers who brought up the year 2050 over and over again, which is when they estimated whites would become a minority in America, a sometimes subliminal form of white identity politics was hard at work. This anxiety also found expression in the early birtherism of Donald Trump and his anti-immigration policies, as well as in the infamous Unite the Right rally to stop the removal of Confederate statues in Charlottesville. Ellie Reeve was at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. CNN's Sarah Seidner has interviewed white nationalist leaders and slick purveyors of scientific racism.
Are you racist?
I'm not racist. Whatever racist means, it is a pejorative term that means whatever you think is somehow immoral or wrong. I reject that idea.
Well, I think it's wrong that you think that someone like me is less intelligent just by my very nature of being black or brown.
Oh, come on. You are an individual. You may be smarter than most white people on earth.
I know, but overall you're saying that my race is less intelligent than yours.
And my race, on average, is less intelligent than Asian. Is that a hateful thing to say? It's where the science leads me, and I have to follow the data. I have no choice.
It's junk science. Just not believable. What Taylor seems to fear the most, the day people of color outnumber whites in America.
If whites do nothing, they will be reduced to a minority in which their culture is a sideshow at which they themselves will be considered a despised group who did everything bad and that all other groups did.
So you experience what I've experienced, or what people of my race have experienced.
I doubt you personally have much experience.
You'd be surprised.
Sarah, what were you thinking then when he said that?
Two things. One, the audacity of someone in his position to question what I have experienced in my life as a woman of mixed race. I thought that was really telling. I thought that told the audience something about where his mind is and where his power structure is and how he saw me. But what you really hear is fear. What you really hear at the end of that is that he is afraid that he is going to be treated as a white person the same way that blacks have been treated in this country. And so he acknowledges in a subtle way that blacks have been treated poorly, and he's terrified of it being reversed onto him.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really telling, and why there are so many people, whether they are white nationalists or whether they are not, are worried about the, quote, browning of America.
And one of the many things I thought was so telling is that anxiety, which it runs through, you see it even in late stage Civil War, where people talk about how, if the South loses the war, they'll be subjected to tyranny and slavery at the hands of not only the North, but former slaves, is what he also said was like cut and pasted out of Tom Buchanan's comments in The Great Gatsby. You know, the idea that the white race has to defend itself or it will be overrun. It's just the same song over and over, no matter how you try to dress it up. But there are really insidious attempts, a lot more persuasive than Jared Taylor.
Anyone looks away takes a turn. Toby, I'm going to give you a chance to avoid this. Maybe Mr. Waller will let everyone enjoy this blessed day. I want you healthy, so you'll work hard. All you have to do is tell me your name. Son of a... Your name is Toby. Now tell me your name. That's not your name. Toby's your name. Now what is your name? Toby's your name. Now I'll ask you again. Tell me your name. Say it! Say it! Say it! Toby! Toby! It's Toby! Say it! Toby! Damn you! Bloody little bastard. You will not move from here till you say your name. Not if night falls or a new day comes. And you will say Toby. Say it. Say it! Say it! Say it!
Tomorrow I hurt my boy.
Please. No, Benja. I can't see our boy. I've looked for him everywhere. He isn't coming home. Say it! Say it! Say it! Say your name. Your owner's wife chose for you. Say your name. So you know this ain't Africa. This is Virginia. And you're the property of John Waller. Like the horses and hogs. Nothing more. Say your name so you know what you are. Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it. Say Toby. Tell me your name. Say it, damn you. Say Toby. Just say your name. Listen. Say it again. Louder. What's your name? What's your name? That's what I'm saying.
On September 5th, federal prosecutors working in Jack Smith's office on the election subversion case requested Trump be prevented from making, quote, inflammatory and intimidating comments about those involved in that case. Seeing as how Trump is no ordinary person or defendant, he kept doing it every single day. He made comments about his former AG Bill Barr, his former Vice President Mike Pence. He has even now suggested that the now former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Mark Milley, be executed. Those specific named threats and criticisms against individuals who were cited as witnesses in the indictment were so serious in the view of Smith's team that they felt the need to speak out once again to reinforce their filing and their request for a narrowly tailored gag order. In a brand new filing from the office of the man who rarely makes his views public, quote, the defendant should not be permitted to continue to try this case in the court of public opinion rather than in the court of law, and thereby undermine the fairness and integrity of this proceeding. The filing goes on, quote, all it would limit is the defendant's use of his candidacy as a cover for making prejudicial public statements about this case. And there was no legitimate need for the defendant in the course of his campaign to attack known witnesses regarding the substance of their anticipated testimony or otherwise engage in materially prejudicial commentary in violation of the proposed order. Now, just hours before this supplemental filing was released, the judge in the case, Judge Tanya Chutkan, scheduled a hearing to discuss this possible potential gag order. It's 2 weeks from today on October 16th. As Judge Chutkan, who is all too familiar.
Well, the twice impeached former president, who is already facing 91 criminal charges, well, he appeared in a New York City courtroom at the defense table, flanked by his lawyers for day one in his civil trial. It is the first of many court cases looming over Trump's 2024 campaign. But this one puts his company and his image at stake. NBC's Laura Jarrett has the latest.
Tonight, Donald Trump once again in a courtroom, with the fate of his business empire now on trial.
Today in court, we will prove our case.
New York Attorney General Letitia James accusing Mr. Trump, his sons Eric and Don Jr., and his namesake company, the Trump Organization, of exaggerating the value of his real estate properties, including Trump Tower, Mar-a-Lago, and 40 Wall Street, by over $2 billion to receive better loan terms from banks.
No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
Just outside the courtroom doors, the former president attacking James, a Democrat, for bringing the civil suit.
Every time they give me a fake indictment, I go up in the polls.
And going after the judge, who's also a Democrat.
We have a rogue judge who rules that properties are worth a tiny fraction, 1/100th, a tiny fraction of what they actually are.
The Republican frontrunner arguing the banks were not victims of fraud and blasting the suit as election interference.
They're wasting everybody's time for many months on this case where banks got paid a fortune, loaned money, got paid money back, didn't even need their money.
But the judge already rejected that argument, pointing out the state only needed to prove his financial statements were false and misleading, and Mr. Trump's, quote, clearly contained fraudulent valuations. The key issues now left for trial: who's to blame for that fraud, and how much should be paid as a penalty. In a deposition video played today, Mr. Trump suggested checking the accuracy of financial statements was the task of his longtime chief financial officer and co-defendant.
Was Alan Weisselberg responsible for that?
Objected the form.
I would say yes.
Sure, blame Alan. That was never before seen deposition video of Trump discussing his company's former top money man, Alan Weisselberg, who has already been convicted and jailed for tax fraud. The prosecution also released deposition video from Weisselberg and former Trump lawyer and fixer, a man you know very well from this network, Michael Cohen.
Mr. Trump would call Alan and I into the office, and let's say it said he was worth $6 billion. Well, he wanted to be higher on the Forbes list, and he then said, I'm actually not worth $6 billion. I'm worth $7. In fact, I think it's actually now worth $8 with everything that's going on. Alan and I were tasked with taking the assets, increasing each of those asset classes in order to accommodate that $8 billion number.
Okay. Tell me everything you know about GAAP. What is GAAP?
Generally accepted accounting principles. I don't know what's in GAAP. I never took the CPA exam.
Okay.
I never studied for it. So I don't know all the various components of what GAAP is.
Are there any components you know about what GAAP is?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Yes, you heard that right. That was Trump's longtime CFO, who was his father's CFO, saying he never actually took the CPA exam. And even Michael Cohen, who said we were in charge of inflating the value of the asset classes, that's no such thing. You increase the value of an asset, not an asset class. It was a honky-tonk rodeo of nonsense. Which, honest to God, sounds like the crazy train because it's more unhinged than ever. Just watch this. It's just a tiny bit of what he's been saying.
Together we will take on the ultra-left-wing liars, losers, creeps, perverts, and freaks who are devouring the future of this state like a swarm of locusts. And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know? I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical DA and AG in America for their illegal, racist, and reverse enforcement of the law. We will immediately stop all of the pillaging and theft. Very simply, if you rob a store, you can fully expect to be shot as you are leaving that store. Shot! They say that there's so much water up north that I want to have the overflow areas go into your forests and dampen your forests, because if you dampen your forests, you're not going to have these forest fires. So I have a choice of electrocution or shock. You know what I'm going to take? Electrocution. I will take electrocution every single time. Do we agree? If somebody's beating you by 10, 15, or 20 points like we're doing with crooked Joe Biden, let's indict the motherfucker. Let's indict.
Second of all, for him to talk about perverts, creeps, and liars, I mean, this guy is under indictment and it has credible evidence of being a pervert, of being a liar, and of being a creep. That's what's so fascinating to me. And third, to take this to its natural end with the conversation we just had about Newt Gingrich, I'll be less diplomatic than I think David was in the course of this.
An unprecedented spectacle in New York today. Former President Donald Trump back in court, facing a judge as his civil fraud trial begins. This New York State Supreme Court trial is the first of many cases looming over Trump's election bid, and the judge last week already found him liable for massive fraud. New York Attorney General Letitia James accusing Trump of years of overinflating his net worth and misrepresenting his company's assets.
Donald Trump and the other defendants have committed persistent and repeated fraud. Last week, we proved that in our motion for summary judgment. Today, we will prove our other claims. My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
Trump sat inside the courtroom for hours, flanked by his lawyers as prosecutors explained in detail the alleged acts of fraud, saying Trump, quote, overvalued his statements from $812 million to $2.2 billion, that he knew that they were false and used them to obtain benefits he was not entitled to. The opening statement featured never-before-seen deposition video, including Trump's own.
To meet your obligation here of presenting the information in the counter in accordance with GAAP, was Alan Weisselberg responsible for that?
Object to the form.
I would say yes.
Throwing former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg under the bus. Now, remember, Weisselberg has already been convicted of tax fraud, and we learned through his newly released deposition video that he actually never took the Certified Public Accountant exam.
If I said the phrase GAAP, G-A-A-P, are you familiar with that acronym?
I've heard of that, yes.
Okay. Tell me everything you know about GAAP. What is GAAP?
Generally accepted accounting principles. I don't know what's in GAAP. I never took the CPA exam.
Okay.
And never studied for it. So I don't know all the various components of what GAAP is.
Are there any components you know about what GAAP is?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Call me crazy, but it seems like basic accounting principles might be important knowledge for a CFO. And let's be clear, ignorance of it, it's not a defense. The prosecution also playing clips of Trump's sons. Now here's Don Jr. laughing about those same accounting principles Weisselberg said he knew nothing about.
Do you have any familiarity with an acronym GAP, G-A-A-P?
Generally accepted accounting principles.
Okay. How did you become familiar with that acronym?
Probably an accounting 101 at Wharton.
Okay. What do they teach you about generally accepted accounting principles in Wharton?
Well, I'm not an accountant, but that they are generally accepted.
Anything else?
That's pretty much what I remember from accounting 101. So.
Have you told me everything you know about GAP?
Basically. I'm sure I could come up with some creative stuff to kill time, but I'd be doing neither of us a favor in terms of educating ourselves.
Eric Trump also questioned, saying he doesn't even remember talking about the financial conditions.
I don't remember a video conference in 2021 talking about the statement of financial condition. Did I? I mean, maybe you could show me something, but again, I don't think I ever signed a statement of financial condition. I don't. I've got a lot to try and jog my memory, and I simply can't because I don't think I've ever had any involvement in the statement of financial condition, to the best of my knowledge.
And even though Trump reportedly appeared solemn in court, maybe even bored, yawning at times, he was visibly irate outside of the courthouse, railing against the case and targeting the judge with nasty accusations.
This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a judge that some people say could be charged criminally for what he's doing. This is really now getting dirty between Jack Smith and between all of these DOJ people helping them along. This is a pure witch hunt for purposes of interfering with the elections.
The article called it a, quote, declaration of war against the globalist American empire. So that's how things are going on the right. In the Democratic Party, it's former President Jimmy Carter in hospice turning 99. He may yet eradicate guinea worm infection from the face of the earth before he goes as part of his legacy of good works and practical post-presidency decency and leadership. We've got the current Democratic president running for re-election by showcasing how much he wants to work with Democrats and Republicans and how much it's okay to compromise and not get everything you want as long as you bring people together, and he's committed to that. On the right, it's a, what's the phrase? A declaration of war against the globalist American empire. Shaping the media landscape in America. And a former president indicted on 91 felonies and spending his days now trying to sick his supporters on the judges and prosecutors who are confronting him in court. Both sidesism about our two major political parties has really never been warranted in this country in modern times, not in my lifetime. Right now, it is not just unwarranted, it is malpractice.
I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream. One day, this nation will